Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Welcome to the FOSIS Wales and West online video tutorials. Today we're looking at maintaining spirituality, and that's specifically the committee members' spirituality. Developing and nurturing spiritual growth, including your own. So try and look at this as through this perspective of yourself, of the individual, because if you implement what's in this video, you'll be more likely to encourage others to do so. And spirituality is the key to balancing ISoc, life and ibadah. Trying to get all those three things working together. Spirituality is the key which will make a busy life a productive life. And having a high level of spirituality and iman, it prevents burnout. Burnout is something which high level executives are familiar with. It's called it's that feeling of complete zero and empty, when you've kind of expended all your resources in terms of your energy and passion. It's something which is also common amongst volunteers within an ISoc because they work so hard. Maintaining a high level of spirituality will help prevent this. There's a few reminders, a few hadith we can look at in this instance. The reason is because committee members, through their nature, are calling people to something good. They're calling to Islam. But sometimes they can forget themselves in this process. And there's a few reminders and a few short hadith which can encourage you to realize the importance of taking care of yourself while taking care of others at the same time. Allah says in the Quran, "O you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do?" It's most hateful to Allah that you should say that which you don't do. So if you're calling people to pray, but then you miss your prayer because you're too busy organizing an ISoc event, this is something very dangerous, and we should try and avoid that. This is what Allah is talking about in this verse, that kind of almost hypocrisy in speech, and I hesitate to use the word. Another saying of Ahmed al-Ghazali, he says, "Don't be like the whetstone which sharpens others and does nothing for itself. The whetstone is a stone which a knife is sharpened upon. Don't be the person who brings benefit to others, but in the end they're still that same whetstone at the end of the day. They don't actually benefit themselves. They don't change themselves." And finally, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Faith wears out in the heart of any one of you just as clothes wear out. So ask Allah to renew the faith in your hearts." A lot of the things we're going to talk about here are a way of maintaining iman and faith and spirituality. So inshallah, these will give you a quick kind of introduction in the importance of why this topic is so key to an Islamic society. And I placed it towards the end, not because it's not important, but because it's so important to reflect upon it. So some methods of maintaining spirituality. We're going to look at three different branches. The first is knowledge and reminders. The second is Quran and Dhikr, and the final one is Salah and Dua. Now these three things, we're going to look at how we can use them to implement and imbue our kind of ISoc life with spirituality. So knowledge is a firm footing upon which spirituality grows, and it's light from God which reveals the path ahead. Now this knowledge will let you know what Sirat al-Mustaqim is. So knowledge is really important to be able to guide yourself upon the right path. And reminders are a revision. So whereas knowledge might be something new, reminders are simply reminding you of the basic aspects of your religion, because as humans we're prone to forgetting, and we're prone to overlooking. And reminders tell the soul that which it already knows, and it encourages reflection, remembrance and right action. It's really the basic reminders which help a person to reflect upon what the world is really about. Now some of the ways you can really use these two things to imbue your work with spirituality is to have regular halaqas in Islamic circles for your ISoc committee members. Sometimes you might organize ISoc halaqas, but you're not there attending yourself because you're too busy organizing. Don't let this happen. Either attend or attend another halaqa which is easier for you to attend, maybe at a mosque, because you're not organizing. But make sure you regularly gain knowledge. Some scholars say knowledge is like the food of the soul. You don't eat just once, you have to eat regularly. Now sharing books and lectures amongst yourselves as a committee. Have a book club where perhaps when ISoc in Wales, they had the sisters meet up in a sister's house, they had some food, and they would read a chapter from a book, a short book, and they would reflect upon it and talk and discuss. And it would, that kind of sharing knowledge and giving each other reminders is really beneficial. Encouraging committee members to also listen to any lectures organized. Don't be too busy not to attend. It's something which is very common, unfortunately, amongst the ISoc, and really it means you miss out on a lot of benefit. Try and attend as far as possible every ISoc event you hold. And always begin meetings with a short reminder. This brings barakah to the meeting, but also because it might be done on a rota system where every individual is sharing a piece of knowledge, it encourages everyone to research and kind of practice giving a piece of information which can really affect the soul in a better way. Quran and Dhikr. The Quran is of course the heart of Islam. Without it, a person's Islam is lacking. What I mean by lacking is that they won't be tasting the fruits of their religion and their faith unless they have a close relationship with the Quran. And Dhikr is the remembrance of Allah. And Allah says in the Quran, surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. So in an absence of remembrance, your heart will be agitated, it will be anxious, it will be nervous. With remembrance of Allah, you will find a lot more sakina, a lot more serenity in your action. Always start meetings with recitation of the Quran, even if it's Al-Fatiha. And it's so easy to overlook this, but may Allah give us the ability to always do this, because it brings blessings, it brings a certain spirituality, and of course it brings the Quran into the mind of the individual at that moment. Starting speeches or dialogue with dhikr. So something I use quite often is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Others can just start with Bismillah or A'udhu Billah. There's also the dua of Musa alayhi salam, which is often used when he went to speak to Fir'aun. He made a dua which is in the Quran. There's the full doxology which is used for the Friday khutbah in Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu and so on. Any of these will bring a lot of blessing and a lot of kind of correct intention to the words you're speaking, and they will encourage everyone listening to start reflecting upon the importance of Islam in every aspect of the person's life. So try and bring these in for yourself and for others. Self-agreed committee tasks. So for example, the committee might agree at the beginning of the year to learn Juz Amma by the end, or do a certain number of dhikr, like 1,000 istighfar, asking Allah to forgive you 1,000 times a day, or 100 times, sorry, the 1,000 is big, is a large number. But something like this, self-agreed committee tasks, where you give the committee something extra to work towards. And making sure all committee members have a Quran in both English and Arabic, and encouraging reading and reflection. So it might be trying to encourage everyone in the committee to read the Quran by the end of the year in English, reading translation, and having little sessions where everyone can come together and talk about some of the lessons they've learned. Basically encouraging a relationship with the Quran. Now Salah and Dua. Salah comes from the Arabic word wasl. Wasl means connection. And so Salah, the scholars say, is a connection with God, of course. And Salah is sometimes called a formal prayer. God speaks to you because you're reciting the Quran. Dua is calling, asking and talking with God. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says in a hadith that dua, it is worship, meaning it's the essence of worship, it's the heart and soul of worship. All worship is really encapsulated in the invocation of the slave to the Creator. And dua is sometimes called an informal prayer because there's no rules, there's very few regulations. You just basically speak to Allah, you talk to God as you like to. So the two of these, Salah and Dua, one allows God to speak to you through the Quran, and one allows you to speak to Allah through your Dua. And they are two very important wings that allow the believer to really fly towards Allah. So how can you use these to imbue your ISoc work with spirituality? The first is Salat al-Istikhara. Now this is something that every ISoc committee member should be doing, especially the presidents, because istikhara is a dua, is a salah to seek the right decision, to seek the khair, and it's basically 2 rakah followed by a dua which can be learned quite easily, and it really does bring a lot of benefit and a lot of khair and blessing to the decisions you make. The next one is Salat al-Hajj. Now this is something good as before and after events. First, before, to ask Allah to bless the event, to make it successful, and also afterwards to show gratitude. And schedule meetings around prayers if possible. So this might be trying to avoid a prayer to avoid clashing, or might be starting or ending a meeting, for example Dhuhr prayer, praying Dhuhr in the mosque and then having the meeting. If there is a meeting which clashes, always pray, and always pray on time. And end meetings and appropriate events with dua. So if it's a meeting, do a quick dua at the end. If it's a lecture, ask the sheikh to lead the people in a short dua, because it will encourage everyone to have that dua as well, and that engagement with Allah. So in closing, what do we say? First, these are simple tips to allow a spirituality to permeate through the whole of the ISoc life. All things are imbued with spiritual meaning and depth, everything. Learn to see and reflect and understand them, because they will add to your own spirituality. And when I say spirituality, I'm very often talking about the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you are an example. As a committee member, you are an example to the committee members, to your members, to the wider community. Be a good one. Be a very good example. As always, you can go to our website or email us at wales.isoctraining@fosis.org.uk. Jazakallah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum.